Have you ever wondered why some people just don't seem to age? Like time just slides off their skin without leaving a mark? They walk among us with faces that seem to defy the calendar, with an energy that throws logic out the window. And no, it's not about miracle creams or secret formulas. It's something deeper, something unsettling. If we look at it through the lens of Machiavelli, it's not about biology. It's about willpower, influence, and the art of self-mastery. We live in a time obsessed with youth. Smooth skin, bright eyes, flawless smiles. These are the new currencies of value. But underneath this surface-level worship of all things young lies a more powerful and hidden truth. Looking younger is also a strategy. In a world where appearance often trumps substance, looking young becomes an advantage. Some may not even realize they're doing it, but they act as if staying youthful, or at least appearing so, grants them a kind of immunity from decline, from doubt, from being forgotten. From a Machiavellian point of view, it's a way of holding on to power, of staying relevant, desirable, and needed. Because just being isn't enough. You also have to seem. That's one of Machiavelli's harshest truths. The world doesn't reward essence, it rewards appearance. You can be wise, honest, and generous, but if you don't look the part, if you don't know how to play the game of appearances, you'll end up as a voiceless bystander. On the other hand, those who learn how to manage their image, who know how to project youth, vitality, and strength, even as the years march on relentlessly, those are the ones who keep getting heard, respected, followed. In the grand theater of public and private life, the winner isn't always the best. It's often the one who looks like the best. And in that theater, youth is one of the most powerful costumes. Because what does youth represent if not promise, energy, and forward momentum? Youth isn't just a phase of the body, it's a symbol. It stands for boldness, freshness, infinite potential. And Machiavelli understood that. To him, the successful ruler is the one who acts boldly, who dares, who doesn't freeze when faced with uncertainty. He's the one who throws himself into the river of fortune, even knowing he can't control the current. That mindset, that willingness to act, is, at its core, a youthful one. So in a way, those who look younger are embodying that ideal. Not because they're ignoring time, but because they refuse to bow to it passively. But don't mistake this for shallow vanity. When a youthful appearance isn't forced or ridiculous, it can reflect a spirit that hasn't been beaten down by cynicism, emotional exhaustion, or resignation. It can be a sign of practical intelligence, of a kind of wisdom that's learned how to hide its wrinkles behind a vibrant smile. It can be, ultimately, a strategy of resistance. As if the soul is telling the body, don't give up just yet. There's still more to do, more to say, more to fight for. Machiavelli didn't believe in naive idealism. His view of human nature was raw and unfiltered. But even in that tough worldview, there was room for admiration, for willpower. Not moral willpower, not spiritual virtue, but the kind of will that acts, adapts, survives. In a world where luck shifts like the wind and security is just an illusion, Machiavelli admired those who refused to be crushed. And in that context, looking younger can be seen as a sign of that unbroken will, a silent declaration, I'm still here, still strong, even if my bones say otherwise. Maybe that's why we're so drawn to people who seem ageless. It's not just about what we see in their face, it's about what we sense in their presence. They haven't been defeated by routine, disillusionment, or the slow erosion of dreams. There's still a spark in their eyes, a steady confidence in their walk, a curiosity in how they listen. And whether they realize it or not, they're being deeply Machiavellian, using their image as a shield, as a tool to stay relevant in a world that tosses aside anyone who seems old, tired, or done. Of course, not everyone pulls this off. Plenty of people give up too early. They accept the role of being old in spirit, even if they're only 30 or 40. They settle. They fade. It's not the passage of time that ages them, it's how they relate to it. Because the most devastating kind of aging doesn't happen in the body. It happens in the mind. And that kind of aging, as Machiavelli might have put it, is the most dangerous, because it hands over your power without anyone even asking. But those who push back, those who keep their fire alive, become rare exceptions. They're not forever young, but they're forever present. They don't cling to the past, but they also don't surrender to decay. And by doing that, they become uncomfortable reminders of a truth many people would rather ignore, that aging isn't some unavoidable sentence. It's an attitude, one that can be negotiated, postponed, even disguised. And that's where Machiavelli's sharp insight comes in. What really matters isn't the age you are, but the age you project. And that projection, that art of seeming without necessarily being, is one of the most powerful weapons in the fight to stay relevant. Maybe that's why, when we see someone who looks younger than they really are, we feel a strange mix of admiration and unease. There's something about them that whispers, not all is lost. Time doesn't get to call all the shots. They make us believe that maybe, just maybe, we could resist too. That youth isn't just a short-lived phase, it's a way of relating to the world. A way of seeing, of acting, of imagining. And if we dare to step into that way of being, maybe, just maybe, we can trick the clock, at least for a little while. So, why do some people seem younger than they are? Maybe because, consciously or not, they've figured out how to play the game Machiavelli described centuries ago. They've realized that life isn't just about what you are, it's about what you project. And that in a world that never waits, those who manage to stay young, or at least look it, not only survive. Sometimes they even win. The art of looking younger doesn't come by chance, and it doesn't grow overnight. It's really the result of 1,000 invisible choices we make over the course of a lifetime, how we deal with setbacks, how we bounce back from failure, what kinds of thoughts we allow to take root inside us. Looking younger than you are is, in many ways, a quiet victory over the slow erosion of hope. And that victory, unrecognized by medals or applause, carries a deep, almost political weight in the everyday grind of life. Some people wear their age like a life sentence. You can hear it in their voices, like every year is a burden that's stolen their right to joy. Others, though, wear their years like a light jacket, barely noticeable. They don't deny time, but they don't bow to it either. They understand that aging isn't just about the body, it's about how you see the world. And they hang on to that spark, that glow that can't be faked but can absolutely be protected and preserved. Niccolo Machiavelli, sharp as he was, would have paid close attention to this phenomenon. He wouldn't have cared much about your diet or workout routine. He'd be watching your character, your drive, your ability to adapt to the times without losing your center. To him, a strong leader wasn't necessarily the smartest or the toughest, but the one who could read the room and act accordingly. And isn't that exactly what people who seem younger do? They understand that the world rewards certain gestures, certain vibes, a certain lightness. They age like everyone else, but they do it with a kind of grace that keeps them relevant, heard, wanted, admired. Maybe that's why youth isn't just a stage of life, it's a strategic resource. Not to manipulate, though sometimes it's used that way, but to resist. To resist being forgotten, being dismissed, being slowly pushed aside once the world decides you're no longer useful. In a way, anyone who keeps their inner flame alive, who doesn't let time harden their soul, is exercising a kind of power. A subtle power, but very real. And this power isn't reserved for the privileged. It's not a genetic gift or a secret kept by elites. It's available to anyone who refuses to dim their light. Anyone who, scars and all, still wants to dance when the music plays. Who refuses to withdraw, keeps asking questions, stays curious like a lamp glowing in the night. Who chooses to laugh, even when there's not much to laugh about. It's not a performance. It's not about denying reality. It's just a different way of walking through the same world we all live in. Some people sink with every step, dragged down by the weight of their years, their complaints, their constant grief over what they've lost. Others move lightly, like each day might actually offer something new. That lightness isn't naive, it's brave. Because it means looking the physical decline, the passage of time, the losses, right in the face, and choosing not to fold. Machiavelli knew that once you give up, you become irrelevant. That power doesn't forgive visible weakness. That's why he preached cunning, patience, adaptability. And in an age like ours, where everything is seen and judged through appearances, looking young is one of those unspoken strategies we lean on every day. Not to pretend to be someone we're not, but to protect what we still have to offer. There's a kind of fierce beauty in people who age slowly, not just in their faces, but in how they move through the world. They're the ones still making plans, still allowing themselves to want things. They're the ones who listen without getting bored, who look without judgment. They're not trying to outshine others, but they're not hiding either. They seem younger not because they're trying to, but because they never stopped playing the game. They're still in it, still contributing, still showing up. And maybe that's what touches us most. They haven't let life slip through their fingers. They still hug tightly, still cry when it matters, still start over when they need to. Because seeming younger isn't just about good skin or a flexible body. It's about having an awake heart. It's about not looking back with bitterness or forward with fear. It's about being fully here, fully now, with everything you've got. And yes, deep down, it's a kind of power. The power not to disappear. Not to fade into some shadow of who you once were. To stay the main character, even if your body isn't as fast, even if your memory slips now and then. Seeming younger, for many, is a quiet rebellion against becoming invisible. It's a way of saying, not yet. I'm still here. Maybe that's why we're drawn to people who seem suspended in time. It's not about jealousy, it's that they remind us we can still resist. That wearing down isn't inevitable if there's something inside that refuses to quit. That we can still take care of our thoughts, our words, our dreams. That we can still shape a life that doesn't drag us towards silence. And in that everyday defiance, in that small but steady rebellion, there's something deeply human. Something that moves us, wakes us up, inspires us. Because we're all scared of aging, not just the physical part, but what it represents, being forgotten, ignored, considered useless. But when we see someone staying young in how they live, we realize that fate isn't as set in stone as we thought. Sometimes all it takes is a spark to bring hope back to life. A laugh, a real conversation, a spontaneous gesture. These moments don't stop time, but they do reshape it. They don't deny it, but they challenge it. And in that challenge, in the choice to keep being a light in the middle of routine, that's where the real secret lies. Maybe, in the end, youth isn't in your skin, it's in your resilience. And resilience, as Machiavelli knew, is the hardest art. But it's also the one we need most. Because only those who believe they still have something worth fighting for, something worth protecting, even if it's invisible, even if it goes unrecognized, can truly resist. And maybe that's why, in a world that's aging at lightning speed, seeming younger isn't just about looks. At its core, it's a quiet kind of revolution. What if it was never really about age, but about the way we look at life once life has already left its mark on us? Maybe looking younger isn't just a lucky break for a few, but something that grows inside people who've never fully lost their sense of wonder. Because no surgery or fancy cream can replicate the genuine softness of someone who still sees beauty in small things. No cosmetic fix can fake the honest joy of a person who, despite all the loss, has chosen not to shut down, not to grow bitter, not to become cynical. Sometimes, the most powerful anti-aging force is simply the choice to keep feeling deeply. And that's no easy thing. There's no magic formula. It's a path paved with scars, frustrations, and heartbreaks. Because to stay young in spirit, you have to be willing to live with an open heart. And that hurts. It hurts when others have already taken the road of total detachment, of skepticism and sarcasm. It hurts when you hang around longer than you should at a goodbye, when you still hope for a kind word, when you risk believing that there's still something worth fighting for. Machiavelli knew better than anyone the price of power, but also the cost of holding on to influence. That invisible pull some people have, that almost secret pact with time, doesn't just come from knowing how to lead others. It comes from mastering themselves, from managing dark thoughts, from not letting resentment grow like a poisonous vine, from laughing without bitterness, loving without keeping score, forgiving without turning it into a performance. Isn't that real power? Isn't that the kind of strength we're running out of in a world obsessed with appearances? There are people, without even knowing it, who've stayed young not by denying death, but by embracing life with such fierce conviction that even time seems to respect them. They live with a kind of gentleness that isn't weakness, but courage. With a humility that's not resignation, but wisdom. And that's where the real magic lies. Their youth doesn't show up in their looks, or their clothes, or their selfies. It's in how they still touch the world. It's not that life spared them. Often, they're the ones who've lost the most. The ones who've cried the hardest. But they made a choice that changes everything. Not to let those losses define them. Not to become walking complaints. Not to live tied to the past. Because growing old too fast often means giving up on the future. Surrendering your soul to disappointment. Quitting on your ability to imagine, create, move forward. But some people refuse to give in. Just like Machiavelli said of true leaders, they reinvent themselves with time. Not to please anyone, but to survive with dignity. To protect what's left of their humanity without selling it out to hopelessness. Behind every person who looks younger than their birth certificate says, there's a hidden story. A pain that turned into tenderness. A disappointment that didn't turn into bitterness. A failure that didn't kill their desire to try again. These people aren't blind to reality, but they've chosen not to be shaped by its harshest edges. They've made it their mission to protect their inner fire, even when the world around them goes gray. And maybe that's why they inspire us so much. Because they show us it's possible. That it's possible to grow older without losing grace. To age without getting bitter. To evolve without pretending to be someone we're not, while still holding on to the freshness of who we can still become. That there's a kind of youth that doesn't expire, because it comes from the soul. It doesn't fade with wrinkles. It grows stronger through them. It wears gray hairs like metals and still sees the world with the eyes of someone who believes something beautiful might happen tomorrow. This isn't some naive praise of eternal youth. It's a defense of vitality as resistance. As a quiet rebellion against a world that wants us tired, predictable, and worn down. In that sense, looking younger becomes almost political. A way of saying, you haven't beaten me. I still feel, still get moved, still let life touch me. And in times when apathy is worn like armor, that's an incredibly subversive act. Every person who keeps their laughter alive, their curiosity sharp, their kindness intact, is doing something heroic. They're proving that not all is lost. That it's still worth it to keep writing, cooking, dancing, falling in love. That time might mark your skin, but it doesn't have to burn out the fire that makes you human. And that fire? It doesn't need an audience. It just needs space. It just needs to burn. Quietly maybe, but still burn. Enough to make the world a little more livable. Sometimes, just crossing paths with someone like that wakes something up in us. Makes us remember we've got that power too. That we can look at life with new eyes. That we don't have to wither on the inside just because the calendar keeps moving. And that's when the miracle happens. Something stirs, stretches, breathes deep. It's not like we instantly get younger, but we start living more fully. And who knows? Maybe one day, it even starts to show on the outside. The youth of the soul doesn't need witnesses or approval. It doesn't beg for applause or likes. It just needs space. A little sunlight. Some silence. A few honest words. It needs us to not give in to numbness, to not drown in the noise, to not shrink into complaints. It needs air. It needs care, like a beloved guest. It needs us to listen when it whispers, "You still have time." Machiavelli, from his chaotic times and sharp mind, would have admired that kind of spirit. He understood that real change starts within. That the most resilient kind of power is self-mastery. That those who don't surrender to fear, bitterness, or despair have a huge edge over the rest. They remain free. Free to keep dreaming, to love again, to start over if needed. And that kind of freedom? It's priceless. Can't be bought. Can't be inherited. It has to be earned, one choice at a time. So, next time you see someone who looks younger than their age, don't stop at their skin. Look deeper. Listen to how they speak, how they move, how they see the world. That's where the real secret is. Not in what they've hidden, but in what they've chosen to keep. And ask yourself if you're willing to protect your fire too. If you still have the courage to live like life hasn't given up on you. Because as long as that choice is alive, no number can dim your light. And maybe then, without even realizing it, you'll start walking a little lighter. Laughing more often. Making fewer excuses. Crying more honestly. Touching life more gently. And that small, quiet shift? That'll be your personal revolution. Your way of telling the world that, even as time passes, you're still here. Alive. present, unstoppable.